Good day, my name is Magda Minguzzi. I'm senior lecturer at the School of Architecture of the Nelson Mandela University in Southern Africa. And I hope that you will enjoy my presentation. Thank you for your time and your attention. I would like to acknowledge the first indigenous peoples of Southern Africa, the KhoiSan people, as the traditional custodians of the land on which our research project was conducted. Furthermore, I would like to acknowledge that this conference is taking place on the land of the Nubian people, who are the spiritual and cultural custodians. Thank you. It is evident that we are experiencing a moment of great fragility and global crisis that is mainly the result of the economical system which most of the world is based on, namely capitalism. In this crisis, where the COVID-19 is only one of the aspects, actually, institutions as universities and museums have been overwhelmed as the milestones, the products of the same Western capitalism that led to settler colonialism, which drastically changes the course of the history of many countries, including Africa. It is interesting also to notice that the modern idea of museum as place open to the public that exhibits objects for educational purposes has been established during the Age of Enlightenment in France. And at the same time, when these institutions were created, we registered the blossom and establishment of settler colonialism in Africa. Here we can see the map of Africa with the historical boundaries of ethnicity before colonialization, and in red today's national boundaries of state, which are the result of the settlers' colonialism imposition. The museum or the museums are among the diverse Western institutions that have been implemented in Africa. But for the majority of local people here, the idea to exhibit objects was, and for a large extent still today, an unmeaningful exercise, because the majority of people have different priorities, so they struggle on daily based life for food security, because the artifacts exhibited at the museum are not relevant for the local people, or because they cannot identify themselves in those artifacts. Or again, if the objects are African related, people still not connected with those because the meaning of those objects have been stripped off. It is also important to add that in places like Africa, where art and artisanship still strongly linked to each other, the concept of beauty is strongly related to use, to the use that you can do of that object. So the reality is that we are facing the clash of two different philosophical approaches to life, the Western based on possession and the indigenous one based on custodianship. And this is the root of the Western world approach in respect to the African artifacts exhibited or kept as a possession as part of collections. Most of the times those objects or sculptures or part of dresses or marks were in fact realized and used by the indigenous people for rituals. So to take those objects out of their context, completely detached from the culture, from the society, and from the reasons that have been produced them, means to strip off their deep meaning, because their meaning is based on their use. And it means that those important elements that are essentially part of a particular group of people's heritage suddenly become a sort of fetish are transformed by the Western philosophical approach or the Western approach in fetish. Here we see Pablo Picasso in his studio in Paris, and I decided to include this picture because he was one of the major collectors of African masks and sacred ritualistic artifacts at that time. So the Western approach about those objects outside the context, far from the reason of why they were created, and far from who should use them in order to give them a proper meaning. The question that we should ask ourselves at that stage is, does it make sense to use these institutions as they were founded and exported by colonialists? Isn't it the time to rethink a different role for them, especially in places like South Africa, which has suffered strong colonization and where the indigenous people continue to suffer strong repression today? So the case studies that we would like to explore here speaks about a new meaning that the museum can activate, where everybody finally can feel represented, because that is the key. In 2015, after my arrival here at the Nelson Mandela Bay, well, I arrived in 2030, but we started to work together in 2015. We established a group of work composed by leaders of the First Indigenous Peoples of Southern Africa, the KhoiSan people, staff and students from the Nelson Mandela University. And in 2019, with the support of the National Research Foundation, finally, we could, speed up, let's say, our community engagement project of visiting, experiencing, and documenting indigenous pre-colonial heritage places, so tangible but also intangible heritage, together with the KhoiSan, with the goal to achieve cultural reappropriation by the indigenous peoples. In fact, with the imposition of the colonialist narrative, the KhoiSan don't have the right to their heritage places, and the places of memory have been covered under a veil of total forgetfulness. A preliminary output of this research was achieved in 2017 with a ceremony called the Spirit of Water, realized by the KhoiSan in collaboration of staff and students of the Nelson Mandela University, and was open to the general public. And they realized that in front of the fish traps that are located in Cape Recife Nature Reserve in the Nelson Mandela Bay. We spent 2 days there on the site, and the experience was documented in order to realize a short film and a photographic exhibition. And the project has been the occasion to collaborate also with 2 museums, and here we arrive to the important point also, that became open spaces, a platform where the indigenous peoples, together with all the other peoples that attended, could express their identity and values, with also the involvement of school children and community members in general. The documentation and the narration of the rituals done in front of the ocean have been hosted by the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Art Museum in Mandela Bay Municipality during the Heritage Month. And together with the director of the museum, Emma O'Brien, we decided to transform the museum into a community-centered space. The day of the opening, rituals as the cleansing ceremony have been performed by the KhoiSan people that you see here in this image. That is just in front of the museum before we enter. And also, traditional dances, and also the KhoiSan wanted to share some, basic words in their own language, which is KhoiSan, Khoiguap. The museum supported also the chiefs in the organization of school children's visits And the chiefs used that occasion to speak with the children about the indigenous knowledge system values, especially related to environmental issues, because this project and us being in front of the ocean was also related to that in some extent. The opportunity for transformation has been embraced also by the Old Library Museum in Graaff-Reinet, directed by KhoiSan. This is the facade of the museum during the opening of the exhibition, and you can see all the people sitting over there in front of the museum, school children. That is a moment of the opening. And the day of the opening, again, rituals have been performed. We organized together, again, performances and traditional dances and music. As I mentioned, the performances were organized on the veranda of the museum that faced the main road of town, so everybody could see it and be exposed to the traditions and cultural expression of the indigenous community, something that is quite rare in Southern Africa, where the KhoiSan are still fighting for the formal acknowledgement as first indigenous people from the government. So I think that was also really important and great that the local people took part also of some of these performances. So we're not only done by, or the ritual, were not only done by the people that came from the Nelson Mandela Bay, but also from the local people. And here we can see the projection of the short film. The collaboration with those two museums is continuing, and currently Emma O'Brien, director of the Mandela Art Museum, is supporting the realization of our film about indigenous heritage and sense of belonging, which is essentially a series of interviews of the KhoiSan chief who are part of our group of research. And we decided to produce a sort of milestone of the work done together, thanks to the support received from the National Research Foundation of Southern Africa. The editing of the film is currently in progress, and we plan to be ready for the launch in September during the Heritage Month. The idea is to use the outside walls of the museum as a screen for the projections, in order also to avoid COVID-19 complications. And recently we had community meetings with indigenous people at the Graaff-Reinet Old Library Museum, coordinated by KhoiSan, on the project Marking Memories Machine Rock Engraving. I've been invited by Professor Roger Fisher from Pretoria University to join this working group, which is based preliminary in the northern country. And during the last couple of years, they documented ancient rock engraving sites in coordination with the indigenous community there. And now they open a discussion at national level about the meaning of the symbols represented on the rock. And so we decided to invite it and to hear what the people in Graaff-Reinet has to say, because it's an area that is very rich in rock engraving. And we also thought that would be possible also to continue the project over there. In conclusion, communities' participation and collaborations gave us the opportunity to explore a new wave of engaging with museums. Museums that want to achieve new purposes as a transformative institutions relevant for the people and without distinction. I thank you.